Welcome back, everybody. Derrick Soo, your 2022 Oakland Mayoral candidate. But right now, I have not qualified for the ballot. I have failed to gather the necessary minimum 50 nominations for being on November 8th ballot. This is not unexpected. It's a setback and a disappointment for me. And I can tell you what the main thing was. Me being homeless. And folks really hate the homeless. And I can't emphasize the amount of comments that I've endured over the last 29 days gathering nomination signatures. While there were 30 folks that do support me and put their name on nomination petitions, 20, I needed 20 more. And right now, I still have a couple of days to go, but with this big setback here, I got my paperwork back from all of my volunteers, and they're very disappointed also. And they worked hard at trying to gather those additional signatures, but then again, the homeless issue comes up. And so, and while I have the solutions that I'm going to be working on, even so right now, let's just say that I am now a write-in candidate on the November 8th ballot. My name will not show up on there. My name and candidacy statement will not show up in the informational supplemental that comes out with the voting ballots. So it will be a write-in vote only for me. And I brought up a lot of good issues from the very start. I knew that it was very unlikely once I got to this point that I would be able to gather those necessary 50, but I started with public relations and talking about homelessness and solutions. And I've been on Netflix, a documentary here that was filmed here in Oakland around Laney College and the struggles of Laney College students and housing, and me being the Oakland's top community advocate and homeless advocate that they found on Google. I was invited to be in that documentary centered around Laney College and the football team. And so anyway, I've been on that. I've been in many news articles locally to get my name out there. I had a big article that was done on me back during the holidays called Homegrown and Homeless by the San Francisco Chronicle. And so there were a lot of things that got my name out there, got my face out there, and it did help. A lot of folks do recognize me from all of the above. And then I have, a lot of followers. I mean, I have millions of followers, literally all around the world. Unfortunately, practically none of them can help me get elected. And so anyway, the plans that I have, I told my friend Zinni Abraham my exit strategy. And if you remember, a year ago, there was a big cannabis bust here in Oakland, and they talked about a confidential informant. And so I was that informant that worked with the DEA and Alameda County. And so since I was a CI, I was not compensated in any way, but put my life in danger. And so that allowed me to petition for a 10% reward bounty of all of the assets. And so with that, not only did this place I profit from, or that I'm going to be collecting a bounty, but also all of the other Oakland sites that I named to law enforcement. And so final accounting could be as high as $40 million over the course of the next 5 to 7 years. And so with that, I have set up a foundation trust, 501c3. And I'm still working on that, all the final legalities of that. And so that's where all that money goes to. Also, I have an open lawsuit with the ownership of the now previous ABNI Foundry. And so that's a $2.5 million lawsuit that is slowly progressing through the court system for the hexavalent chromium, because you hear it in my voice. And I've already been told that it's highly likely that I would not see 70, the age of 70. I'm 62 right now because of this VOC that ABNI emitted. And so in the month of September, I'm going to be going back to my doctor for another checkup. It's not elevating to the voting ballot is a setback and a disappointment to me, but again, like I said, it wasn't unexpected. And so anyway, at the top of the year, my first 10% is based upon the cash recovery that they got on this site that first day. And that was $10 million. So 10% of that is a $1 million cash dollar reward that goes into that foundation trust. And that will be applied to the 501c that I'm currently going to be working on for tiny homes. And that's a 20-acre site that is being held in trust through a friend who is a land trust management company, and one of the largest here in the United States, and he's a personal friend. So we're looking at new projects, whether I'm elected to the mayor's office or not, and otherwise I will be working on homeless solutions here in Oakland as things progress. So even though I didn't make the ballot, I'm still winning. I still have a few more months living here in the encampment before the first deposit is made into the trust and foundation's bank account that's going to be set up. And so I'm just biding my time right now. But I appreciate all the support that you folks have given me over the years watching my channel and right here on Zinni 62 Media, Oakland News Now. I appreciate all of that. If you still want to support my candidacy, I actually have until 5 o'clock on this coming Wednesday. This is Monday morning right now. And if I gather another 20 signatures, and hopefully all of that 50 will be enough where once they verify all the signatures and addresses, that 50 would be enough to get me onto the ballot. So there's still a little shred of hope, but I'm not holding out much because it's been difficult taking some of the stinging comments that I get, even face to face as a candidate. The amount of disrespect, and let me talk about the disrespect here. There's a lot of organizations around Oakland that have held mayoral meet and greets, and myself and many other candidates have not even been advised of these meet and greets for the possibility of even showing up. In other words, we weren't invited. In fact, there's one going on today that I'm aware of that came out between Lauren Taylor, Trevor Reed, and Shane Tao, that there's a meet and greet in Jack London Square. And so it's all the top front-running candidates that are going to be there. And I don't know if Greg Hodge is going to be there, Seneca Scott. I'm sure Alyssa Victory will be there, because she did mention that she saw that. And so, again, it comes back to the top folks. And as a person who's really not likely to win the Oakland mayor's office, I question why Oakland has elected so many stupid leaders that have no skills, no knowledge, current mayor included, where a lot of Oakland's issues could have been dealt with in a timely fashion and saved the city from criminal activity, saved the city from all the homeless issues that have gone on. So there's a lot of things that the city should have and could have done better. But again, we keep electing leaders that make bad decisions. And I cite the city council, the current city council people that are running for the Oakland mayor's office. The first bad legislation that they did was the EMP, passing the EMP, encampment management policy, 2 years ago. And they have not enforced that, nor can they enforce that. In fact, just last week they lost, or they settled out of court rather than going to court for a hearing on the violations that they inflicted on many of the homeless folks. And in fact, a $250,000 reward was paid to Needa Bee, who was the leader of this encampment. And what that does, it's restoration money for the property that they lost. And so that's just the first of 7 lawsuits that Needa Bee has. And now that we're starting to talk about the bad decisions and the bad legislation that the city council members that are running for mayor's office have passed, they need to explain that. Because I'm one of the organizations called HOG, Homeless Advocacy Working Group, that meets with city council members, city administrators, and at one point, Mayor Libby Schaaf used to show up for the HOG meetings. And we would discuss solutions and talk about the needs, taking care of the needs. And the HOG is made up of here Oakland residents, Oakland businesses, Oakland city council members, or a representative from different council districts, and city administrators. And so as a group, we represent Oakland, and we strive for fairness for everybody, and we dispel the smoke and mirrors that the city has presented. They flat out lie to us about passing the EMP. The author is one of the front runners. Everything was violated your constitutional rights. In fact, it was a travesty reading through that, and we fought tooth and nail against that. And the city council, even though they unanimously approved that stupid EMP, they didn't enforce anything. He said, well, okay, let's talk about, let's see what we can change about it. And that's where it stands. It never got picked up again. They just let it sit. And then we had mayoral candidate Seneca Scott. He took the EMP and filed a lawsuit against the city for not enforcing the EMP, which they couldn't, because through Needa Bee's win with the city council, first thing that the city did, they violated a court restraining order. A court restraining order was violated, and at the time the city attorney's office said move ahead, told the city move ahead, clear the camp. And so that comes on the 3 city council members that approved the $250,000 payment to the group, and this is just the first of many. And then they also said, okay, we will change policies. We will work with you to make this more fair and more equitable. And so these are the folks that I work with. And it's a travesty what has happened to the homeless here in Oakland. Everything was completely avoidable. I've been talking about solutions since 2017, and a lot of these solutions now are being stood up by the city of Oakland. But then the problem is that they take the model that I introduced to them and they change it, and they put the wrong agencies in charge of oversight, and everything goes back to a very harmful state, and they actually inflict mental trauma on the residents from these organizations, these intervention agencies, and it's devastating. You know, hearing some of the stories that I get back from folks that end up coming back from those programs, and then myself, if you've been following along for the past couple of years, you know that out of 32 people here, when I returned in July of 2020, we had a big problem. The neighborhood called me back and said, we need you to come back to clean up a criminal element that's taken over your camp. And so that's what I did. Within 2 weeks, less than 14 days, I had removed the criminal element from this neighborhood. It was a tough job, and it was a very dangerous job because the criminal element was armed. But then the criminal element also knew me and that I'm armed, that I'm a federal firearms licensed carrier. And so, yeah, we had some words, and within 13 days, actually, I had cleared out 17 characters, criminals, and only 2 came back for a little while, and then the city didn't deal with one of the prime characters. Even though he had 9 warrants, the city of Oakland left his butt free to roam, and to this day he still is free roaming and has not been picked up for those 9 warrants. And so he's one of the criminal elements that's a danger to Oakland, and he needs to be dealt with. But yet Oakland does nothing. They know his name. I've spoken to many officers that are likely no longer with the department because the attrition rate is really bad. And then morale is in the toilet with the police officers, and so I really feel sorry for them. They have a tough job to begin with, and to have it that much more difficult. And we're seeing right now, once again, we're below the federal level, minimum level for street officers. And so that's why our response times have once again shot up over 2 hours in some cases. We had a big fire around the corner, and the AT&T service building there was slightly damaged from the heat and the fire. The height of the fire damaged the second story on the building. And this is why we need to have the homeless off the street and into safe, secure housing. Number one, the innocent folks that are truly homeless and in need. I've introduced a program to make sure that they have long-term housing, along with somewhere to be, which is the community land trust. And so right now we're starting to see some movement in that direction, and I hope to help move that forward in the new year. Once I'm gone from here, is once my money is restored, then I will be able to leave here very quickly and resume the life that I used to have. But I'll be starting from zero. If my project is put together in a timely fashion, I'll actually be living in a tiny home on that property with an address, just like any other person. And this tiny home village will be revolutionary and life-changing for a lot of folks. Like I said, it's a large site. It's 20 acres. It's raw land, but we can work with that and make a difference in Oakland and start a new trend nationally. Bring recognition back to the city of Oakland as being creative and outside the box thinkers. So thank you for joining me today. If you have time and you still want to support me being on the ballot, you're welcome to drop by here all day and tomorrow and even Wednesday morning. Because if I have enough signatures to turn in, then I will actually go right up to the end of the deadline, which is 5 p.m. on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. So I have today, tomorrow, and a partial on Wednesday for nomination petition signatures. And then I have to get them to City Hall, the city clerk's office, by 5 o'clock on Wednesday. So if you want to help in that fashion, that'd be great. I really appreciate it. But other than that, November 8th, I'm only going to be a write-in candidate. It's disappointing, but not unexpected. This was expected because this was the hurdle that I was afraid of getting to, because once I start saying or talking about homelessness and then talking about being a leader and a manager in an Oakland sanctuary site, and then the harsh comments start flying. And so anyway, I'm really burned out on that. I've had the last 29 days of really nasty comments on the homeless, and even on myself, even though they don't know me. There's been some pretty harsh comments, and they haven't come down to see my sanctuary site that I manage here in the city of Oakland. And so I'm just done right now. All the negativity that's been thrown at me as a homeless person, not as a mayoral candidate. If I was a housed person, it would have been very different. I truly believe it would have been very different if I had been housed, because then folks would have taken me seriously. I've had people call me up and tell me that media is not taking you seriously, some of the candidates aren't taking you seriously, residents aren't taking you seriously, and they said, they told me why, and So while it was hurtful, it was expected. I knew that going in back in 2017 that it would be a very brutal process once folks found out that I was homeless, that I advocate for the homeless, but I also advocate for the community. And so anyway, thanks for joining me today. I'm still going to be doing these broadcasts up until November 8th. I'm still invited, as far as I know, to a meet and greet coming up on September 29th at Castlemont High School. So as far as I know, I will be there. And then also I'm supposed to do a Zoom interview in the first part of September. So we'll see if that still applies at that time. But thanks for joining me today. We'll be right back.